Hare Krishna. I am Atul Krishnadas. I am going to be your host in this session of Ashram Talks. Thank you so much for everybody who is joining live today. And in previous session, we were talking about our duty, our prescribed duties, and the importance about not thinking so much about the end results, either positive or negative, according to us, according to our desires, but just doing the duty for the duty's sake. And before it was duties that were prescribed by your birth, but many of those duties are chosen by ourselves in our society now. So now that we know a little bit about that, today we're going to talk a little bit about how the awareness of this wisdom changes our life through yoga. And in order to guide us in this journey of self awareness today, we have the wonderful Chandramukhi with us. Hello, Chandramukhi.
Hi, so nice to see you and so nice to be here again.
Mhm.
Yeah, it's such a wonderful topic, and I really look forward to exploring it today. And it's this is the beginning of the transformative aspect, really, where Lord Krishna is guiding us on a really, really amazing journey through the Gita to completely transform us. So I really look forward to this verse today. So I'll go ahead and start then. First of all, I'm going to offer my obeisances, my pranams and prayers unto my Divine Master. Om Jnana Timirandasya Jnananjana Shalakaya Chakshun Militam Jena Tasmai Shri Gurave Namaha. Nama Om Vishnu Padaya Radhikaye Priyatmane Shishimad Bhaktivedanta Narayaniti Namane. Nama Om Vishnupadaya Krishna Prasthaya Bhutale Srimati Bhakti Vedanta Swaminiti Namane. Namaste Saraswati Deve Gauravani Pracharane Nirvishesha Shunyavadi Pastachare Shatarine. Jai Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadhar Shivasadi Gaura Bhaktivinoda Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare Hare. So today we are delving into very, very interesting topics, and it's actually the very beginning of Krishna talking about this topic of yoga and how it can free us from bondage. So we'll start with the sloka, and then we'll go into the details. So we're up to chapter 2, verse 39. Eshate bihita sankye buddhi yoge tva imam shinu buddhya yokto yaya partha kama bandham prayasyasya. Thus far, I have declared to you the analytical knowledge of Sankhya philosophy. Now, listen to the knowledge of yoga, whereby one works without fruitive result. O son of Prita, when you act by such intelligence, you can free yourself from the bondage of works. So, as we have heard in the last few verses, Krishna has been taking Arjuna, trying to wake up Arjuna out of his grief, out of his dilemma that he's gotten himself into, and he has been trying to wake him up with so many different beautiful instructions. And so in this verse, he's saying, thus far, I have described this knowledge to you through analytical study. And now he's leaving that and he's taking it deeper. So in this verse, it says Sankhya, that's analytical study. That's the word in the Sanskrit. And Sankhya means that which describes something in detail. It properly illuminates the nature of an object. It describes, like in analytical description, really describes it. And in this, it's actually referring to the analytical description of the difference between the soul and matter, or spirit and matter, basically, or the soul and the body. So and it's describing the real nature of the soul. And Krishna has spent so many verses. It's actually described that so from verses 12 in this chapter to 30, he very vividly described the science of the soul, and the soul cannot be killed. The soul is eternal, and the body is like a dress. And then the next so many verses, next 8 verses up to verse 38, which is just where we've come to before this verse, he's describing what is not related to the soul in the form of the body, but in form of occupational duty. And he's been giving arguments first based on the soul and then based on the duty, and how if you act just, and like in the last verse, he's just said, do thou fight for the sake of fighting, without considering happiness or distress, loss or gain, victory or defeat. And by doing so, you shall never incur sin. So he's giving such a strong foundation of how to act in this world and how to actually bring about real happiness, and how his actions and his decision not to fight is actually based on his own self-centeredness. He's looking at himself, seeing that what is going to be more beneficial to me, and he's not looking at the overall picture like God does. So it's actually based on his own desire for sense enjoyment. So he's thinking that he'll be happier by not killing his relatives and kinsmen than enjoying the kingdom by conquering them. So it's all based on his own viewpoint. And that's very much related to us. And Krishna is talking to us, right? In the Gita, he's talking to Arjuna, but he's talking to the whole world. Those of us who have come into this world, and we are self-absorbed in our own little reality and our own story. And we're always proposing not to do this or to do that based on our own sense enjoyment, based on our own desire for what we think is going to make us happy. And because we've identified with the body, we think that we think that who we are is the body. So we're trying to satisfy our own senses. In everything we do, really, we think about it. Our eyes are taking us to enjoy this. Our ears are listening to this music and these sweet words by someone, and then we feel happy. Or if we receive bad words from someone, then we feel upset. Our tongue, our wanting to enjoy food and nice tastes, or speak nice words, or we speak harsh words. There's all these different ways we engage with the world through our senses, and ultimately it's trying to find happiness. And that's because the soul is eternally happy in its real nature. But because we've identified with the body, we think that happiness lies in sense enjoyment, and it's like a conditioning that we've developed over many many lifetimes. And so our decisions then of what we should do and what we shouldn't do, just like Arjuna is making a decision, I'm not going to fight. Or we might be in a situation where, whatever our situation it is, we make decisions based on what's going to bring me the most sense enjoyment. And that can be quite confronting when we really look at that in ourselves. And actually, it's not the real us, though. Luckily, it's not the real us. We are beyond that. As Krishna is telling Arjuna, you are more than this body. You are pure spiritual being, and you don't need to act in this way anymore. And so he's encouraging us to rise up out of this vision of sense enjoyment and look at the broader picture. So we see God can see the whole broader picture, right? He can see inside and outside everything. He is the creator of this world. He knows what is beneficial for everyone. And when he's telling Arjuna to kill his relatives, he's looking at the broader picture. He's looking, as we heard from Haripriya in the last verse, how Krishna wants Yudhisthira to be established as the monarch because he wants the rule of the world to be under someone who is godly, who is out for the benefit of the society, not under someone who is out for the selfish motivation for themselves, which unfortunately is the case in today's leadership in the world today. But if we can learn from Krishna in the Bhagavad Gita how to change our vision to be according to God's vision, according for the broader welfare of the whole world and ourselves, then and when we say ourselves, not our sense, the sensual aspect of ourself where we're just absorbed and identified in our senses, but who we really are, and we look to the happiness of the soul, then everyone and the happiness of God, then actually we're looking to the welfare of the whole world, the whole of humanity, and living, non-living things, everything, animals, the whole world. When in previous times, as we're seeing in this Gita, as we're learning in the Gita, the king was actually uh, concerned about the welfare of everyone's soul, not just their body, not just satisfying their senses. So if we can act from that vision and be like that king in our own lives and act for the welfare of others and ourselves in this light, then there can be real happiness in our own life and those of others around us. So Krishna is looking from this vision, and so he's saying in this verse, so thus far I've described this knowledge to you through analytical study. Now listen as I explain it in terms of working without fruitive results. Now in the actual verse it says Buddhi Yoga. That's the translation. And Buddhi actually means intelligence. So in the last part of the verse, he's saying, O son of Prita, when you act in such knowledge, you can free yourself from the bondage of works. So when we use our intelligence to act in this way, in yoga. So let's go into a little bit more detail what he's actually meaning here. And as I said at the beginning, this is the beginning of Krishna giving very detailed instructions. He's just introducing it here in this verse. So in the commentary of my Gurudev, His Divine Grace on Vishnupad Shishimad Bhaktivedanta Narayan Goswami Maharaj, he's published another Gita with the commentaries of Srila Vishwanath Chakravarti Thakur that very much complement Srila Prabhupada's Gita. So he's saying in his commentary that when a person performs selfless action, fixing his intelligence on that which is related to bhakti or devotion to God, he becomes free from the bondage of action. In other words, his bondage to the illusory material world is destroyed. So when we talk about bondage, we're talking about the endless cycle of birth, old age, disease, and death that we're all bound in very, very tightly. And we're in this cycle of action and reaction, of karma, of performing pious and impious actions and getting the result of that. Everything we do is a result of our previous actions. Everything that is fructified in this life, that, like in the verse, it's mentioning fruitive activities. What does that mean? Fruit. It's the fruit of a tree. You plant the seed, you water it, it grows, it gets bigger and bigger, it grows leaves, and then finally, when it's big enough and matured, then the flower comes. Like right now, I've got a lemon tree in the garden. There's beautiful flowers on it at this time of year. And then very soon, some fruits will come. The lemon will appear. So the fruits, it's talking about the fruits of activities. And it's likened to a tree because there's a seed, and then it gets watered, and then it gets planted, and it gets planted, it gets watered, it grows until there's a fruit, right? So every little thing we're doing, our thoughts that are creating our actions, what we meditate on, they're creating our future in this world. So, and there's hundreds of them, right? Hundreds of seeds of thoughts and desires that we have. And when we so they start, and then once we've thought about it and contemplate it, then we act and we do it. And so they're like the seeds, and then we're beginning the reactions of the fruit of what we're going to get in the future. I mean, we can see it very practically when, in a practical example, when a student or a teenager decides that they're going to be a doctor, for example, and they think about how that would look like and what they would do, and then they end up going to university and working hard to get there, and then they get the fruit of that, they get the degree. So that's happening on every level of our life, and that's why we look the way we look, why we may be in a man's body or a woman's body, why we may have the inclinations um, to be in a certain way, like, in a particular mode, whether we're lazy by nature or we're motivated by nature, or, every little thing is the fruit of our previous actions from previous lives. And they have a seed. They have, they grow, and it grows, and then finally in this life it's called fructified, or it's fructified karma. It's called parabdha karma in Sanskrit, where we've actually, everything has become manifest, right? And simultaneously, as we're enjoying the fruits of good and bad actions, so our suffering is coming from our previous actions, our pain. We all have a designated amount of pain that we'll be feeling this lifetime. And you can't change it unless there is ways to change it. But when we're caught in that cycle of bondage, it's there, it's going to be there. And that, there's a certain amount of enjoyment that we're meant to have this lifetime, and it's all because of how we've acted in the previous lifetimes. And that's why all religions of the world, or all teachings that teach about morality, whether it's religion or non-religion, if we act in a moral way that's doing good to others, then we're going to reap the results in the future of material enjoyment. But if we're hurting others, we're engaging in immoral acts, then we're going to receive so much suffering, and we'll be getting that right back at us. If we kill someone else, we're going to get killed. If we steal, someone's going to steal from us in the future. So it's like a perfect system where the Lord has arranged that. It's like a perfect justice system. People ask, why is it that, people in Africa, for example, this is just a random example, or why is it what's happening right now, in Africa, where the poverty there, or anywhere in the world. Now there's so much poverty all over the world, whether you're in a third world country or not. Why is it that someone is living on the street? And why is it that someone has a beautiful penthouse, at the top of overlooking a beautiful view of the bay? Or why is it that so many people are suffering over in Gaza right now? These questions, they're very, very important, because they point towards us, that we are, and this doesn't stop us from helping others in difficult situations, but the ultimate reason why things are happening is that we planted a seed, and now we're reaping the fruit of that seed. And it can happen on a mass level when people are all killed at once. It's heavy, but some reason that spirit soul was engaged in another body somewhere else, where they were giving out that to others, and now they're getting it back. Now that doesn't make it right, and that doesn't mean we should try and not stop it. But this is the inner reason behind things, and then we get entangled when we go and try and stop it. So that means in a future birth, then someone else will come and rescue us out of that situation. So this world is very entangling, and there's so many levels of bondage and entanglement that we're in. Now, Krishna is saying in this verse something very, very powerful. This bondage can stop. This bondage can actually be cut. But it's not easy to just cut it. You can't just be cut by any ordinary thing. Only something that is transcendental, that takes us beyond the body, the mind, takes us to the nature of spirit, then we can cut this bondage. And it's very simple, but very, very powerful, that he's saying, listen, as I explain it in terms of working without fruitive results, O son of Preeta, when you act in such knowledge, you can free yourself from the bondage of works. We can free ourselves from this entangling net of action. And what is the action? So it's all actually all about action and desire. How we're acting, how we're desiring. If we're and now this is the point that's actually pretty simple, but sometimes difficult to follow. But when we follow it, it works and is very powerful. But the very simple aspect is, if we work for ourselves, our own sense enjoyment, we're entangled. If we act in a way that is selfless, but so not for our own selves, but taking it further with yoga, then we can free ourselves from the bondage of works. So what is yoga? We've heard that many times. And yoga is all about connection. It's communion with God. And it's like finding our relationship with God, rather than the opposite is forgetting our relationship with God. We only really working for our own enjoyment and sense enjoyment when we're uh, when we're forgetful of God. If we can become God conscious or Krishna conscious, and develop our relationship with Him, and then act for His pleasure, act for the pleasure of God, then automatically we are happy, and our bondage in this world begins to end. And this is a very practical thing, and Krishna is going to give so many wonderful practical, so much wonderful practical advice of how to act in this Buddhi yoga or Bhakti yoga. And he's describing here specifically also karma yoga, and he's going to be going through actually all the different aspects of yoga he will describe come under the umbrella of Bhakti yoga, which is Bhakti is loving devotion to Krishna, to God. And by engaging our activities in service to God, in pleasing God, and we please God, the whole world is pleased, because actually we're all parts and parcels of God. And we've said this before, that just like the parts and parcels of a fire are not non-different from the fire, if the little spark of the fire tries to act independently, it's just going to fizzle out. But when it's serving the fire, then everything, the fire is blazing. Or the example of watering the root of the tree and all the leaves are satisfied. So if we go straight to the root, that who am I? I am part and parcel of God. This spiritual, in our spiritual nature, we are beautiful spiritual beings that don't die, that don't develop old age, disease, that are not born. We are eternal. But we've come into this world forgetting that position. And so we've become identified with our body and mind, and search for happiness separate to this, separate to our real nature. So when we can learn to work without fruitive results, without expecting the results, so usually, and this can be a little bit difficult in the beginning because we're so used to it, we're so used to expecting that we're going to enjoy the results of this, right? We're going to work this so hard, we're going to get this amount of money, and we're going to go on this holiday, and that's going to be for my enjoyment. But when we change it and dovetail it, that everything is Krishna, everything belongs to God, and using everything in His service, then uh, then we're in our natural position. And it doesn't mean that we're not going to be enjoying. We're going to be enjoying to the most, way more that you can enjoy in this world. But it's not based on a self-centered way. It's selfless action with fixing our intelligence to please God in a loving relationship eternally, ultimately. But it also begins here in creating that, cultivating that relationship right now, knowing that He is present in our lives every day. And before we approach any activity, we can think, what would God want of me? Before we approach any duty, instead of thinking in our automatic way of what would I want, with my limited vision, just like Arjuna has a limited vision of what he thinks is right, God has the ultimate vision. He sees the whole broader picture. What would God like of me in this? Actually, I know someone who was in the company of a lot of Christians, and they would often say WWJD, and he was wondering, what are they saying? And they finally told him, and he said, it means what, WWJD, what would Jesus do? And he always remembered that, and he transferred it to WWGD, or what would Gurudev do? So, or, what would God do? Obviously, depending on our faith and where we are situated, whatever acronym we use is going to be the one. But, the point is, before we approach any activity, any decision, what would God do? What would He want of me? And He says in the 18th chapter of the Bhagavad Gita, which we'll get to there eventually, it's the end of the Bhagavad Gita, He says, if you become conscious of me, you will pass over all the obstacles of conditioned life by my grace. If, however, you do not work in such consciousness, but act through false ego, not hearing me, you will be lost. And that's our condition in this world. If we're acting through false ego, which means our false identity, and trying to seek that sense enjoyment and the fruits of our activities, not hearing God, we'll be lost. We're lost in the cycle of birth and death. But if we become conscious of God, we'll pass over all obstacles of conditioned life by His grace. That's what He's promising in the Gita, in this 18th chapter. And now another thing I want to touch on before we finish is this concept of fruitive action, right? So it also, in some ways, because I gave the analogy of the plant growing into a tree with a fruit, and it's actually similar when we engage in spiritual activities, but it's bearing a different fruit. There's still a seed. There's still the seed of action, the desire to do something, because we can't not do something. That's what we do. We're acting all the time. We can't just not think. We can't just not desire. When our desires start, when we get the inclination to serve God, to serve Krishna, an inclination to please Him, to develop our connection with Him, and we fan that and cultivate that, that is like a seed. It's a seed of desire that is liberating from this world, that gradually removes the bondage, cuts away the bondage. And when that seed grows, it actually becomes so strong. And then just like we talked about the analogy, it's actually given like the analogy of a creeper, the bhakti lata creeper, or the seed of devotion. Rather than planting seeds of fruitive action that bind us to this world, the seed of devotion can be awakened in our heart so that we become inclined to serve God. And then it grows and grows and grows and grows. And it's described, there's a beautiful book, Madhurya Kadambini, written by Srila Vishwanath Chakravarti Thakur, describes this process of the seed of bhakti arising. And when it describes with this analogy that the first leaf comes and it says it kleshagni, it destroys. So when we that seed of bhakti, or seed of love for God, is growing, then the first leaf of that creeper is kleshagni, completely destroying our sinful reactions from the root. All desires to enjoy in this world become destroyed, because you have so much love and affection arising in your heart for God that nothing else matters anymore. No kind of enjoyment through the senses can make you realize there's nothing in this material world that can actually make me happy. it's only that connection with God that can bring about that. So all desire, all our bondage, our sinful reactions get destroyed, and simultaneously, a shubhada, that all of our wonderful qualities manifest, and all auspiciousness manifests in our life. And that's the beginning. And then it grows and grows. And there's so many beautiful descriptions of the different stages one goes through as one's cultivating and watering the desire for love of God. And then finally, at the end, the fruit comes, and this is the real fruit that we should be striving for. Krishna Prem, or ecstatic love of God, arises in the heart, and nothing else matters. Only your loving personal relationship with the Lord, and simultaneously your spiritual form is arising gradually, your eternal spiritual form. So I'll just finish off with a couple of verses from Sri Ishopanishad that my Gurudev quoted in his purport there. And the points I've been talking from have been in Srila Prabhupada's purport and from this other purports from Srila Vishwanath Chakravarti Thakur and my Gurudev, His Divine Grace on Vishnuvad Sri Srimad Bhaktivedanta Narayan Maharaj. So Ishopanishad, he's quoting that the first verse of Ishopanishad is saying that everything animate or inanimate within this universe is controlled and owned by the Lord. So every little thing is owned by the Lord and it's controlled by Him. One should therefore accept only those things necessary for himself, which are set aside as his quota. And one should not accept other things, knowing well to whom they belong. So when we know that everything belongs to God, then we can use everything in the service of the Lord. So actually, he is known as Parameshwara, the sole enjoyer of the world. And when the parts and parcels, because we are parts and parcels of God, act for the benefit of the whole, which is God, then and we engage in our activities for Him and give up the results of activities for Him rather than for ourselves, then we can use everything in this universe as an instrument. And then we can maintain our lives by accepting what He is giving us. So using everything as an instrument because everything does belong to Him, rather than using what is not even ours. I mean, when we're born, we come in with nothing. When we die, we leave with nothing. Nothing is ours, but we falsely think it is. When we use everything for His pleasure, then automatically all the parts and parcels of the whole become happy, simultaneously cutting our bondage from this world. So it's the supreme duty of all living entities to render loving service to God, and using God's property in His service, and acting in this kind of selfless way, rather than for our own enjoyment. Then we become free from the bondage of actions, because the bondage of actions are related to selfishness, are related to our senses, and that binds us. But any actions related to God completely cut the bondage to this world. And then the next verse, it said in the Ishopanishad, said one may aspire to live for 100 years if he continuously goes on working in that way. For that sort of work will not bind him to the law of karma. There is no alternative to this way for human beings. So by living in this way, in yoga, in Buddha yoga, bhakti yoga, and beginning with karma yoga, giving up the results of our activities for God, then one can live for, it says, hundreds of years, but none of the activities that you do will bind you to the law of karma. So just wanted to thank His Divine Grace, Shri Srimad Bhakti A.C. Bhaktivedanta Swami Prabhupada, and all of our acharyas and my Gurudev for all these beautiful teachings that they've illuminated for the world to actually become completely free from all sufferings and sorrows, all bondage to this world, and teaching us these beautiful teachings of Krishna, how to actually awaken to true eternal happiness in a very practical way that is real, and it's not hazy, but very practical vision of how to live our lives. I'll finish there, thank you, and maybe there's some questions today. Maybe not. It doesn't look like it so far.
Hello. Thank you so much for sharing that wisdom with us today, Chandramukhi. So we now know that we must perform our duties to please Krishna, to please God. And I personally was wondering if you could expand just a tiny little bit of the goal, because we mentioned that while doing this, we can free ourselves from bondage. And if our soul is eternal, and we become free from this eternal cycle of death and rebirth, you know, then what should we aspire to if we want to get free of that? Because some people may be focusing on how can I cash like really good karma to get better in life instead of what should I want to get free of this cycle? Where will I want to go? Because our lives is not just like this short period of time in here, because we are eternal.
Yeah, that's a really nice question, um, because we can't just not desire anything, right? What should we desire for, right? Like if we're desiring our own, and it takes a lot of visualization when we like planning something, right? We're planning something for our life and how our life will want to be. And that takes a lot of visualization. Then it takes a lot of hard work to get there. And then we get to the end, when it's material desires, we get to the end and actually it didn't make us happy. And we've spent so much effort, right? So what kind of effort, what kind of visualization do we have that's related to the soul? What kind of actions and hard work will we need to do to really, and it will take hard work, but the visualization and the goal, like you're saying, is setting the goal. Now that's the beauty of the Krishna conception of God. And no other scripture in the world gives such detailed descriptions of the kingdom of God and who is God and what does he look like and what does he do every day. Um, and so in the descriptions in the Srimad Bhagavatam, you can see in the Krishna book, you can see, which is a summary of the 10th canto of Srimad Bhagavatam, you can see the beauty and sweetness of the kingdom of God, and how God is on every day. He's playing as Krishna, because Krishna is very sweet. God, actually, God, the word God, my Gurudev would say, God, generator, operator, destroyer. So in his God aspect, he is creating this world, he is maintaining it, and then it's ending, and then it's creating it again. But who is God in his personal feature, in his beautiful sweetness? He is a young cowherd boy in Goloka Vrindavan. His abode is called Goloka Vrindavan, in the realm of Vaikuntha. Vaikuntha means without anxiety, without fear. And there in that transcendental realm, this world is like a reflection of the spiritual world. So here we have trees, we have flowers, we have nature. There it is there as well. But it is, everything there is out for the benefit of everyone else in relationship with God. So God is the center, just like we described, God is the supreme whole, and all others are parts of God. But God manifests in such a beautiful way to display wonderful adventures and pastimes every single day in loving relationships. So he is known as the ocean of rasa. And now this is a topic we could talk for hours on, so I better just try and summarize it at the end of the class here. But um, uh,
I
basically
get
he's
it. And we
he's
will have, future sessions to expand a little bit more. But I think it's enough with saying that in the material world we have duality. Even if we want to cash in good things with good karma, I mean, we cannot control every single thought that we have in our minds. And as we can experience pleasure in here, there's always going to be pain. And the idea will be to free ourselves to be with God in the spiritual world, which is full of this sweetness, which I hope we'll have the opportunity to hear a little bit more about that in later sessions.
And I'll
Thank you
just
so much, Colleen, for being here. Also, you always connecting. I really appreciate you always being here and leaving comments and your love.
yes, thank you, Colleen. I wanted to say that too because it's so nice to see someone regularly here that and you're getting a lot of out of this, obviously. So thank you for all your questions that you had. They're already always stimulating very good thoughts and conversations. Um, I just wanted to finish off in one or two sentences. What I was saying is that God is the ocean of love, and every one of us has a loving, specific loving relationship with Him, and it's played out in the spiritual world eternally in all the beauty and sweetness. Just like we want the variegatedness of loving relationships here, but they don't fully satisfy us. But a relationship with God fully satisfies you in every aspect. And by hearing about His activities and pastimes, we can get a picture of it and develop the visualization to develop a desire to be with Him eternally, be with Him right now in our lives, and knowing He as God, He is present within our lives, but knowing that we also have our eternal relationship with Him and it can grow. And by cultivating our relationship with God, that will grow and grow, and that fruit will be that eternal, loving relationship in the kingdom of God forever. So I just want to finish off because I didn't quite finish my train of thought.
Thank you so much. And again, we are here on Ashram Talks every Monday at 7:30 p.m. and every Thursday at 8 a.m. Eastern Standard Time. So please join us. And if you have any questions or comments, you can leave a message in our social media. Thank you so much, everybody, for being here. I will see you in another opportunity.